8 toss-ups in a row and convert it into like 8 bonuses. So like it's for you don't have to. Okay. If it just happens.
There's some water a little bit. And it might make it to 3 weeks. Ungodly.
Remember, no more anti-Semitic jokes.
What? Some of them were pro-Semitic.
Your one was bad, but his one was just like, I know what is Joey. That's
I do know some things about you. Yes.
I'm down to the
Torah study.
everybody's favorite trip.
St. Peter's is bigger, and the cathedral in Ivory Coast is bigger, so that's the joke.
That's the biggest cathedral in the world.
Yeah,
right?
So I do not understand what that could mean.
Wait, you want question?
DAOU.
Is it like the second largest
Everybody's favorite trip.
Oh, it didn't get that far.
Okay.
Is this talking about a shopping center?
Yeah. The City Life project.
Yeah,
I assume it's not called City Life. I assume it's called
Felicity.
Chita Vita.
That sounds good.
Yeah, that's a really good name for a project.
Chita Vita.
I'm going to call it that this crowd is going to have either Cortez or Katara.
Well, sit down and we'll find out in about 3 seconds.
He's already sitting down, man.
I'm talking to you!
Calling contact, you gotta be the rough,
Thanks, Scott.
This first toss-up, it's not about either of those dudes. Don't buzz. Steak or Tash or Kadar. Alright? Don't do it. Here's the toss-up. Back at the last round of the playoffs. Toss-up 1. In some religions, a red resin called fardella was smeared over this kind of religious object. Ernst Menker wrote a 2-volume treatise on this sort of object used extensively in the Lap religion, which was kind of covered with runes and said to be the compass of the Sami people. In another religion, a living sort of this object called a mitigwakik was created by filling a log with water and was chiefly used by the Ojibwe. In yet another religious tradition, a spirit called an Ana inhabits this kind of object and is used by Aktwan. The large Iya, the medium-sized Itotele, and the smallest Okonkolo are 3 types of these objects called Bata.
Drums.
Yeah. Good.
Drums is correct. Here's your bonus. This writer is called a dream spook in the short treatise Dreams of a Spirit Seer, for 10 points each. The name is author of such books as Heaven and Hell and the Heavenly Doctrine, which details his visit to Satan and God. His other works include a 12-volume commentary on Exodus and Genesis, Arcana Celestia.
Ooh.
Or Celestia.
Another clip.
Say again?
Another
That's not right. It's Emmanuel Swedenborg.
Oh.
W.H. Auden praised this other author's negotiations with God, markings, whose quote, "The longest journey is the journey inwards," provided the title to the adventure game, The Longest Journey.
Yeah, Bond Adventure.
What do you got? Who knows the poetry of Dag Hammarskjöld?
What?
Both Emmanuel Swedenborg and Dag Hammarskjöld are religious writers from this country. Blah, blah, blah. There's your
Just named in Sweden.
It's less than that.
That's amazing.
We need a trick. Toss it two. While serving as Minister of War, one man with this last name was victorious at the Battle of Watignies, traveling with the Army of the North. A later person with this last name rose to power after his predecessor was implicated in a scandal in which his son-in-law Daniel Wilson profited from the sale of Legion of Honor medals. The elder man of this surname wrote the 1810 work A Treatise of the Defense of Fortified Places, in which he described his namesake fortress wall. The younger man of this name succeeded Jules Grévy as president, but the anarchist Santi Caserio stabbed him to death as he was speaking at the Lyon Exposition in 1894. His grandfather of this name became known as the organizer of victory while serving on the Committee of Public Safety. 10 points give this last name shared by the French General Lazare, an assassinated French president of the Third Republic, and the author of Reflections on the Motive Power of Fire, who was called the Father of Ford. Yeah.
What was it?
Carnot. These are all dudes named Carnot. Here's your bonus. John McLaughlin's version of this song on My Goals Beyond was the only song on the album in which he recorded the guitar in the original for 10 points each. Named the song in E-flat minor, which was written as a tribute to Lester Young.
Oh, Goodbye Pork Pie Hat.
Yeah. Goodbye Pork Pie Hat appears on an album named for this jazz musician, followed by the syllables Yeah. Mingus sings "Oh Lord, No More Swastikas" and "Name Someone Ridiculous, Danny" on the original version of this song, named in part for a Southern politician.
Yeah, this is Thomas.
30.
That's the same album.
It is. Here is toss 3. If the limit of a function f of x as x approaches infinity is finite, then it equals the limit as y approaches 0 of y times this operation of the functions f of y according to the final value theorem. A useful formula for calculating this operation applied to the product of the Heaviside step function times another applied to the product of the Heaviside step function times another function is given by the second shifting property. This operation is always defined for a piecewise continuous function over the integral from 0 to infinity according to Lurch's theorem. In complex analysis, a function is analytic if the strip of convergence in the two-sided form of this operation has a finite width. In circuit analysis, it is common to convert ODEs with this operation into its moments, solve, and convert the result back into the time domain. For an input of 1, this operation produces a value of 1 over s.
Loss transform.
Yes, go ahead.
10 points. Answer the following about African writers who are cuckoo for Okonkwo puffs. Sorry, I just read that. For 10 points each. A resident of this village named Okonkwo stars in Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart. Yes. In this novel, Akauna's uncle and stepfather Okonkwo believe that the title Thing will be large because she's educated and healthy. This Buchi Emecheta novel tragically begins with Akauna's father Ezekiel dying and ends with Akauna herself dying in childbirth.
It's also about some bride price.
Yeah, it is. Oh, yeah, it's called the bride price.
Oh,
Yeah, that's right.
What's your answer?
the bride price.
Yes.
Yeah.
An essay by noted scholar Julian Okonkwo states that this author's People of the City was an early representative of African urban fiction. He wrote 2 novels about the prostitute Jagwanana.
No,
Jagwanana is by Quincy. Sabrina Quincy.
Nice.
30
Good
points.
job.
Solid bride price knowledge. Toss up 4. Yeah. In 1971, Mario Romanes stole this painting and tried to ransom it using the name Till van Limburg to raise money for victims of the Bangladesh genocide. A crumpled piece of paper at its bottom right contains a nonsensical musical score and lies beneath a floral tapestry.
Conscience Awakening.
That is not right. -5. And lies beneath a floral tapestry that serves as the repoussoir for this painting. The foreground of this painting includes a shadowy map rendered at a very sharp angle, while the floor is patterned in marble white and egg-shaped black tiles. A hearth as well as a seascape with a boat and landscape with a traveler hang on the back wall shown in this painting. Mourning slippers and a broom appear in front of the painting's 2 people, a woman in blue who gazes down with disapproval, and a woman dressed in yellow who holds a lute in one hand and the title object in the other. For 10 points, name is Genre, seen by Jan Vermeer, in which a maid gives a woman a secret document.
The love letter.
That's 10 points.
That's good.
Or just the letter.
There is a crumpled piece of stone.
I believe you.
Your bonus. So-called positive and negative deviations from this law give rise to azeotropes and binary mixtures, for 10 points each. Name this law, which states that the vapor pressure of a component in a mixture of liquids equals the vapor pressure of the pure component times the mole fraction of the component. Raoult's law says nothing about the temperature dependence of vapor pressure, which can be modeled by this simple equation, which states that the log of the vapor pressure equals A minus B over T plus C, where A, B, and C are empirically determined parameters.
Sure.
That's right. The non-ideality of a solution can be quantified using this parameter denoted phi. It is proportional to minus the natural log of the activity divided by the molality. You got it.
Ionic strength.
It's called osmotic coefficient. You got 20 points. 5. In The Disinherited Mind, Eric Heller wrote that this location's inhabitants are Gnostic demons who hold an advanced position against the maneuvers of a soul, in contrast to another writer who called this place the seat of divine grace. While staying at a hotel, the protagonist stares through a keyhole to see the man in charge of the 10th chancellery of this place. After a woman rebuffs a man from this location during a celebration for a fire brigade, that woman's family is ostracized. People from this location include a secretary who will not stop writing named Momus, and two men named Sortini and Sordini.
The castle.
That's just
Nice.
that's what it is. Here's your bonus. This man reportedly declared the faster the Germans become Americans, the better it will be, sparking the legend that he stopped German from becoming an official language of the U.S. For 10 points each, named this man who allegedly suggested the title Mr. President was the first Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives.
Frolinghausen. Yeah. I don't know.
What do you got?
Frolinghausen.
It's Frederick Augustus Conrad Muhlenberg. Muhlenberg was a politician from this state, as was founding father John Dickinson, who authored 12 essays called Letters from a Farmer in this state.
Pennsylvania.
Another great German-American was this Dutch Reformed minister called the Apostle of the Raritan Valley, who initiated the first Great Awakening in the Middle Colonies. This man's great-grandson of the same name was the vice president on Henry Clay's ticket in 1844.
White.
This is fairly poison.
No, we should have just said.
Well,
Speak up.
here is toss-up 6. Yeah, you got time for that. Thank you. These quantities can be replaced by the boson creation and annihilation operators by applying the Holstein.
Spin. Outward matrix, yes.
Nice, Steven!
I don't think that's unique to spin with
You might be right. I don't actually.
Steven!
But good buzz. Here is your bonus. In classical mechanics, these statements can be used to reduce the number of degrees of freedom and thus the number of generalized coordinates needed to specify a system for 10 points each. Name these statements, which can be written in the form of a function f of the generalized coordinates and time equals 0.
holonomic constraints.
That's right. Whether the constraints are holonomic or not, this principal name for a Frenchman states that the sum of the work done by forces acting on a particle during a virtual displacement consistent with constraints imposed on a particle is 0.
So it's not that it's equation, it's delta pairs.
Yeah. The state of a non-holonomic system depends on the form of this entity required to achieve the state. The work done by a conservative force as a particle is moved between 2 points is independent of the nature of this entity between 2 points. Toss-up 7. Here we go. An essay about the ecology of these concepts considers them as ecosystems by using the example of patient medical history forms in a physician's office, and was written by Anis Bawarshi. These concepts are defined as typified rhetorical actions based on recurrent situations in a Carolyn Miller essay that considers them as a social action. The Hopkins-inspired term outscape is used to identify a cardinal point in the set of these concepts in an essay that suggests that there are 4 types of these things, including one named epos. That essay states that these things are partly determined by the radical of presentation or the way an audience is addressed, and is the 4th essay in Northrop Frye's The Anatomy of Criticism.
Ooh, really hard.
10 points. Come on, man, it's editor 7. You never know what's going to come up in editor 7.
No, it's just.
Here's your bonus. A text of the Iliad called Venetus A contains a summary given by Proclus's Chrestomathy of these now lost epic poems for 10 points each. Name this group of poems, which begins with the Cypria and ends with the Telegony, in which Odysseus dies. It is sometimes includes the Iliad and Odyssey.
Yeah, it's called just something generic, like the epic cycle or the heroic cycle.
Okay. I like the heroic cycle. Maybe the transic cycle?
What do you got?
Heroic cycle.
Say again?
Heroic cycle.
Epic cycle. About 30 lines survive from this poem in the epic cycle, in which Odysseus and Diomedes venture to Lemnos to retrieve the arrows of Heracles. Philoctetes kills Paris in this poem, which ends with the construction of the Trojan horse.
Troy, Ilionica, I don't know.
You're so close. It's the Little Iliad. The Little Iliad is written in hexameters comprised of this poetic foot, consisting of a stressed foot followed by 2 unstressed. There's 10 points for you.
So close.
So very close. Here is toss-up 8. The second man to hold this post hastily built a navy called the Cardboard Squadron, including a frigate fitted with Zelensky's dynamite gun, after a group of mutineers seized all of his ships like the ironclad Akidaba. That holder of this post became known as the Iron Marshal after he put down the Federalist revolt led by a group called the Maragatos, during which he captured the town of Destera and renamed it in his honor as Florianopolis. The first man to hold this office faced an economic disaster named for a horse racing term meaning to mount the saddle, the ensilamento. A much later holder of this post, Washington Luis, was the post bringing an end to the coffee with milk period.
Prime Minister of Brazil.
That is not correct. This post, first held by Theodora La Fonseca, ceased to exist on the rise of a dictator who killed himself at Castillo Palace in 1954. Campoy named this highest political office, which alternated between men from Minas Gerais and men from Sao Paulo during his country's first republic.
President of Brazil.
That's right. Brazil does not have a prime minister.
I know.
You get a bonus. 6 articles allegedly written by Dr. Andrew Grant calls this event by announcing the discovery of 2-legged beavers, furry human bats, and unicorns who pranced among fields of amethyst crystals for 10 points each. Named this event in 1835, in which people went into a frenzy and bought up all the copies of the New York Sun after it announced the discovery of extraterrestrial life.
So it's the hoax about people living on the moon. It's the life on the moon hoax.
I'll take it.
Thank you.
They call it the Great Moon Hoax of 1835. The moon hoax are the only two things that are underlined.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
The backstory for the satire was that the son of this great astronomer had recently gone to South Africa to conduct secret telescope research. This man, who composed 24 symphonies, also discovered the planet Uranus. Sure did. Annoyed by a Methodist debate about whether Genesis proved that giants roamed the earth, the atheist George Hull cut a 10-foot block of gypsum in 1869 and had it buried on Stub Newell's farm. They claimed he discovered a petrified man. That giant became this famous hoax named for a village in New York. Rather, named for this village.
List all the villages in New York.
Yeah, name all the villages in New York.
Utica Man.
No, it's the Cardiff Giant.
That's right.
Well, I always thought the Cardiff Giant was from Cardiff.
Cardiff, New York, not Cardiff, Wales. Toss up.
Very
9.
derivative.
Immediately before the score for a passage of this type, its composer wrote a Latin phrase translating as harmonic labyrinth, easy to enter, difficult to escape. An F-sharp minor piece of this name opens Johannes Brahms' 8 pieces, in which these pieces are paired with intermezzos. Pietro Locatelli's Opus 3 features 12 concerti, the first and third movements of each of which contains a passage known by this name. The horns introduce a sign theme on which the orchestra plays variations in the second movement, Variazioni, of a piece named for this form. That example of this...
That's right. I should
George Corfield.
George Corfield takes some music.
Your bonus! These aspects of the sky were formed from the severed head and decapitated body of the figure who was slain during the churning of the oceans for 10 points each. Name these 2 aspects of an asura who came to symbolize the 2 orbital nodes of the moon. In Hinduism, eclipses are explained by these 2 inauspicious figures.
They've got names.
They have got names. I'm asking you for them.
Say that, but I didn't. They're not Rana and Sun.
It's Rahu and Ketu.
Oh.
In Hindu astrology, Rahu and Ketu are 2 of the Navagraha. Another of the Navagraha, Shani, represents this celestial object, which in Greco-Roman myth is named for a god married to Alps.
Oops. The
North Star.
Try that.
The
No,
North Star?
It's Saturn. The planet Saturn was also associated with this member of the Trimurti, this creator god, who was born from a cosmic egg.
Brahma.
10 points for yours.
Wow.
Toss of 10.
The shit. That was really bad.
This practice was attacked by a series of pamphlets entitled Why Not and Is It I by Horatio Storer, who authored a report which defended his crusade against this practice. This action was once known as Restalism in honor of Madame Restel, who advertised in support of it in New York with her husband Charles Lohman. Philippa Foot wrote about this and the doctrine of the double effect in the 1960s.
Abortion.
Nice. A bonus. Answer the following about eagles in history for 10 points each. Bertrand du Guesclin, the man known as the Eagle of Brittany and the Black Dog of Broceliande, was defeated in this 1637 battle in Spain. Edward the Black Prince and John of Gaunt allied with Peter the Cruel to defeat the French-backed forces of Henry of Trastamara here.
What is the name of that battle? I don't know.
Calatrava.
Battle of Nakara. According to legend, this man found an eagle's nest with 7 chicks in it, which foretold his election as consul a record 7 times. He also made the eagle a symbol of the people of Rome as the leaders of the Populares opposed to Sulla.
Marius.
Known as the Eagle of Lille, this man was the first German flying ace during World War I. He invented a namesake turn in which the aircraft executes an ascending half loop, then a half roll to start flying in the opposite direction at higher altitudes.
I know that Diddy is the guy that killed one.
What do you got?
Diddy.
It's Max Immelmann.
Oh, the Immelmann time. Have you seen the Immelmann can get fucked him sketch? I bet you should.
Don't know what you're talking about.
Go away.
That was toss of 10.
Philosophy club.
And now we're going to have a score check.
At the half, I have 185. 85.
Okay. Toss up 11.
It's always doable at the half.
This poem compares the smoothness of a woman to goodly champagne plain, and asserts that women are weak since men have marble, women waxen minds. The main male character of this poem is neither buffeted by the smoke of a torch nor the needle his finger pricks when he picks up the title character's glove. Its title character states that time's glory is to calm contending kings, to unmask falsehood and bring truth to light after the title action, which causes her to tear senseless Sinon with her nails while destroying a painting of Trojan warriors. Its title character clads herself in mourning black and kills herself after telling her husband Calatinus to avenge
The red blue crease.
Good job.
The recoil generated if these systems collide can alter the velocity of their center of mass by over 4,000 kilometers per second, which is an unexplained but flagrant violation of Newton's third law. For demonstrates each, name these systems whose components lose angular momentum as they leave a wake in their orbits. The fact that these systems coalesce into one, despite dynamical friction becoming insignificant, is the final parsec problem.
What?
The
black hole binary.
Yeah.
Here's a black hole. Yeah, I got it.
When a black hole binary coalesces, it will release more energy than all of the stars in the universe. Some of that energy is emitted in these ripples of space-time predicted by Einstein. Yeah, the projected ESA mission this projected ESA mission currently scheduled for launch in 2034. So long. Will allow for the detection of gravitational waves with frequencies much shorter than the ones currently detected by LIGO.
Yeah. So what's the space mission called?
That's so far away. You got.
Virgo.
It's called LISA, or the Laser Interferometer Space Antenna.
Okay.
We didn't realize it was so far in the future. Fuck. We'll never figure it out. Here's toss of 12. A Romanian artist who worked most of his life in this country made Elephantine sculptures of subjects such as Starfish Dancer and Ring Dancer. An artist born in this country used his wife Isabel Nagel as the model for his buxom standing woman. American architect John Everson helped design this country's huge Grand Rex movie theater. An artist from this country depicted a nude male and female swirling around the central timepiece in his The Day and the Night. That artist from this country produced extensive glassworks for St. Matthew's Church in Millbrook, New Jersey, and created Spirit of the Wind and Spirit of Ecstasy, which were popular hood ornaments. For 10 points, name this country of origin of the Art Deco movement, whose members included Dimitri Chiparis, Gaston Lachaise, and René Trans.
I thought Art Deco was the United States movement and it was all Martin Road. Apparently I'm wrong.
Anyway, so here's your bonus. This man put forth the chain store paradox, in which it may be simultaneously rational and irrational for a store to threaten a price war when another store threatens to enter its market for 10 points each. In this game theorist also invented a game called his horse because of the shape of its diagram and extensive form. He proposed the notion of subgame perfection used in dynamic games.
Hello, this is Nash. I think so. Let's talk about Nash.
Go for it.
Nash.
This is Reinhard Selten.
Oh.
The concept of subgame perfection is a refinement on this idea, named for the man who won the Nobel, was Selten and John Harsanyi.
Yeah.
It occurs in a game when all players know each other's strategy, but gain nothing by changing their own.
Nash. Equilibrium.
Yeah. This British transport analyst used the concept of the Nash equilibrium to develop two namesake principles intended to minimize the total travel cost in a congested roadway. One of his principles examines route choice, and the other the average journey time.
It's probably really important in traffic stuff.
I'm sure Chris knows
Super
that.
important in traffic studies. For sure.
Ultimate.
What do you got?
Ultimate.
It's John Wardrop.
Just got to read that.
Are you putting that on the grass?
What?
Are you putting that on the grass, or do you actually take it?
Yeah.
I never know with you, right?
Yeah. He's the guy that crossed things.
Jerry,
Someday.
notable expert in traffic studies.
All right, toss of 13.
I've waited with lots of information.
Infection by one organism in this genus is detected by PCR of its B1 gene or by the Sabin-Feldman dye test. Infection by one organism in this genus causes irregularly shaped germinal centers and clusters of epithelioid histiocytes on lymph node biopsy. Like Sarcocystis, organisms in this genus have a motile tachyzoite stage susceptible to antibiotics and a bradyzoite stage that is resistant. In AIDS patients, either lymphoma or infection by a member of this genus are the main causes of ring-enhancing lesions in the brain. It's not listeria, but congenital infection with an organism in this genus causes a characteristic chorioretinitis. That organism in that genus is the first of the torch infections, which is why pregnant women are told to avoid raw milk and raw meat.
Toxoplasma?
Very nice.
In one scene of this play, Japheth insists that he should use a rudder to navigate the ark, though Noah thinks that it is sacrilegious for 10 points each. Named this last play of its author, which depicts a 600-year-old Noah challenging God's will. It is named for a fruit that symbolizes the renewal of life in God.
So renewal for pomegranate? No,
What you got?
it's a bit sexy. Pomegranate.
It's the Flowering Peach, the name of Eisenhower's favorite golf course, inspired the title of this author's play, The Flowering Peach. The travails of the Bronx family of Meyer and Berger are the subject of this author's play, Awake and Sing.
Sing. Ives.
Yells of strike, 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 and this other play by Clifford Odets, in which the title character never appears on stage, but is shot dead as taxi drivers strive to make a new world.
This is what Waiting for Lefty is.
What was the name of the second one?
It is Clifford Odets.
Awake sing. That'd be a great.
Awake and Sing.
Awake hands.
Toss up 14.
Not a great sequel.
This place was the home of the historian Erkenpert, as well as Leo Marsicanus, whose chronicler of events at this location was based on the writings of Amatus. After it was ransacked during a night raid led by Duke Zotto, this place was restored by a man named Petronax, who's called its second founder. Much later, this place was captured by Vladislav Anders, who commanded the Second Corps, an army in exile during Operation Diadem. A prophecy that he would rule for 10 years and then die was given to King Totila when he was rebuked while visiting this location. This location was the weak point of the Gustav Line after the flooding of the Rapido River, though Albert Kesserling initially agreed not to station troops at this place, which became a battleground in 1944. The founder of this place came here from Subiaco along with his sister, Saint Scholastica, for
Monte Cassino.
Your bonus. In 1959, the Socialist released his Medicare plan, which promised to provide every person in Saskatchewan with public health care. He named this Baptist minister, who served for 17 years as premier of Saskatchewan, and then led the newly formed New Democratic Party from 1961 to 1971.
Oh my God.
This dude's actually really famous.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Pierce.
Rider.
It's Tommy Douglas. Douglas remarked that the government is using a sledgehammer to crack a peanut when Pierre Trudeau invoked this legislation to deal with the October crisis. This bill gave the government the power to arrest and detain suspects without trial.
So this is when he says, "Just watch me."
War Measures Act.
War Measures Act.
That's right. Douglas was
Thank
defeated
you.
in the 1962 federal elections, largely due to backlash over this labor dispute. It was mediated by Lord Taylor and ended by the Saskatoon Agreement.
Strike of some kind, coal miner strike maybe? Coal miner strike?
No, it's a doctor strike.
Oh, that's right.
George. Rough Riders, Rough Steel.
You got 10 points.
Great, very awesome.
Okay, toss 15. In 1862, Adolf Trendelenburg argued that a certain philosopher had not shown these concepts to be non-objective, an objection sometimes called the neglected alternative. The Worm view, in contrast to the stage view, uses these concepts to uniquely identify physical objects. Contrary to the philosopher Samuel Clarke, a relativist argument for these concepts was advocated using both the principles of sufficient reason and the identity of discernibles in a correspondence by Leibniz. In the Transcendental Aesthetic section of Critique of Pure Reason, Immanuel Kant suggests that these two concepts are...
I can say sometime. I'm so sorry, man.
Why?
I like the major.
You do like that?
It's not like this.
Here's your bonus. Blotches of yellow, black over gray comprise this artist's painting inspired by Ronald Reagan's Star Wars Initiative, SDI, for 10 points each. Name this German artist who made a Cracker Jack homemade squeegee to apply paint to canvases, thus creating his trademark blur in artworks he called abstract painting.
Richter.
Yeah. Before embracing abstractionism, Richter made many paintings in this style, which gave the name to a movement whose members included photo booths painter Richard Estes and the wheelchair-bound Chuck Close. Yeah. During the 1980s, Gerhard Richter created dozens of paintings depicting candles and these other objects. David Hurst studied one of these since the diamonds. 30.
Sonic Dude? Yeah, exactly.
Here is Solstice Worship.
Okay, 5 to go. I have 255, 145.
Okay. Toss of 16. The headwaters of this river were found by Randolph Marcy, but ambiguities in his report led to a political dispute. A railroad named for this river was built by Ralph Smith and then busted up by Joseph Bailey to build Bailey's Dam during a military campaign which included the Battle of Pleasant Hill. Captain Richard Sparks led a group of soldiers that accompanied Thomas Freeman and Peter Custis when they explored this river. A military campaign named for this river saw Richard Taylor force the army of Nathaniel Banks to retreat, smashing him at the Battle of Mansfield. This river once contained the Great Raft, a huge massive timber blocking its flow. An 1806 expedition named for this river, funded by Thomas Jefferson, was stopped at the Spanish Bluff due to the actions of James Wilkinson. According to the Adams-Onis Treaty, this river's southern banks mark the U.S. boundary with Spain. The points named this river, which forms much of the boundary between Oklahoma and Texas. Answer the following about examples of polyphenism, which is when one genotype epigenetically produces multiple discrete sets of traits. During development, this organism can enter a Gower stage instead of its normal L3 stage in order to survive harsh conditions. Its two genders are hermaphrodite and male, depending on whether its sex chromosomes are XX or XO. Yeah. Caste polyphenism causes organisms displaying this type of social structure to develop into groups such as workers, soldiers, and queens. Ants and bees display this type of social structure, which is also characterized by cooperative group care and overlapping generations.
Sociality.
Yeah. In an example of predator-induced polyphenism, Daphnia fleas form neck teeth around their heads in response to this type of chemical secreted by the predator. Contrasted with alamones, these chemicals and the chemical messages benefit the receiver but not the sender.
Fuck. I did this in evolutionary biology, and we just didn't remember what the chemicals called. I like that.
What do you got? They're called chiromones. Okay. That was 20. Toss of 17. In one work, this thinker writes that words which originally imitate the sound of nature evolve into exclamative words and then attention-calling or demonstrative words. He collaborated on a paper entitled A Visit to the Other World with his wife Mary Haas, and his article, The Phonemic Principle, provided an early definition of the phoneme put to use by William Claudel. Del Himes wrote the foreword to this man's unfinished book, posthumously edited by Joel Schertzer, entitled The Origins and Diversification of Language. After being fired from City College of New York for alleged communism, this man was hired by Lázaro Cárdenas' government and worked in Mexico City for the rest of his life, developing the principle of lexicostatistics. He points to this American linguist whose technique in glottochronology includes publishing 100 words that he posited to be a universal basic vocabulary, referred to as his namesake list.
Schindler.
It's Morris Swadesh.
Okay. Never seen that.
Here's toss of 18. Molecules possessing two chromophores and this property exhibited energy splitting in their excited states due to exciton coupling. The benzoate sector rule and the octant rule are methods for predicting the sign and magnitude of an effect observed in absorption spectra of molecules with this property. Molecules with this property exhibit the Cotton effect in their ORD spectra. DHQ2-FAL and Trover's base are tertiary amine compounds which exhibit this property. BINAP exhibits the axial form of this property. Compounds with this property can be synthesized using auxiliaries used to induce it. Circular dichromosome spectroscopy.
Nice.
Your bonus. One member of this school of thought, Henry Moore, argued that the soul was truly incorporeal in Enchiridion Metaphysicum. Kempo named these thinkers, including Anne Conway and Joseph Glanville, who argued that forms comprise the fundamental structure of the world. They are named for the British University where they were
Cambridge.
Yeah. In The True Intellectual System of the Universe, Ralph Cudworth argued that the universe has this property, which basically states that all matter is truly alive. Yeah, sure. It's called hylozoism. Cudworth appropriated the idea of hylozoism from this ancient Greek school, the first school known to have imagined the world as being created through the will of anthropomorphic gods. Its members include Anaximenes and Anaximander.
They are Anaximander is
What do you got?
set up.
No, these are the Milesians. 2019. You got 10. This author's story about Swift Doyer's domestic abuse is presented as a duel between an alarm clock and a suicidal purpose. A surreal story by this man features a giant tigress watching over the title crying infants. This author wrote In the Tenderloin and An Explosion of 7 Babies, the latter of which is one of his Sullivan County sketches. In another story by this man, a drummer's tale about a woman with 2 scuttles of coal is interrupted, causing 2 Mexicans to leave the weary gentleman's saloon when the town drum comes by, causing a character to board it up. In that story by this author, a character admits that I ain't got a gun on me, and that he has just returned from San Antonio with his...
It's Craig.
Brad, you post $2 guy. Your bonus. Answer the following about the military career of Giuseppe Garibaldi, for which each of this volunteer unit, created in 1859 by Garibaldi in Cuneo, saw action in the Second and Third Wars of Italian independence, including their invasion of Trentino in 1866 and victory at the Battle of Bezzecca.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Red shirts.
No, it's the Hunters of the Alps. Well, later, Garibaldi commanded a volunteer group called the Army of the Vosges during this war, which included the 1870 Battle of Sedan.
Oh, no. Pressure war.
Yeah. While championing the slogan "Rome or Death," Garibaldi's force met Emilio Pallavicini at this mountain massif in 1862, where he was taken prisoner in battle and shot in the foot, an episode which inspired the popular nursery rhyme Garibaldi fu finito.
Yeah, I don't know this.
What do you got? It's Aspromonte. You got it. Task Blast. In the first book of the Ars Amatoria, this woman holds a beating heart after a bloody priest feigns some holy rite of sacrifice under a competition. Cicero claims that Ephors received prophetic dreams by sleeping at a shrine to this woman in Thalame. One of this woman's children was accidentally murdered by his own son Alcimenes, while another of her sons died after winning all the prizes in the Panathenaic Games and being ambushed by jealous rivals. The seer Polyidus found another of this woman's children after that child drowned in a jar of honey. This mother of Androgeus, Catreus, and Glaucus cursed her husband by forcing him to ejaculate scorpions.
Husband.
Sorry, you're bound to be disappointed. The presto fifth movement of this piece begins with the cello playing a blunt E major arpeggio followed by complete silence, as if it came in too early for tempo. Each named the 7-movement piece.
Beethoven 14th Street.
That's correct. While Beethoven worked to integrate the fugue into his 14th Street Quartet and to create an organic whole, this composer took a more lyrical approach and based the second movement in his 14th Street Quartet on his earlier song, Death in the Maiden.
Oh, yeah, Schubert.
Beethoven's earlier quartets include 3 which comprise his Opus 57 and are named for this Russian ambassador who commissioned them. You got 30 points. And that is the game and also the tournament, except unless you're going tiebreakers, which maybe you're not, but other people might be. Tiebreakers will only occur for placement, for things that involve deciding the outcome of the tournament.
That seems correct.
So where do we go now?
Go to 1401.